This vision and mission statement was developed a couple years ago. It's been adopted by our board, and it helps drive a lot of the decision making that we do here at the school, and even at the board level. They refer to the vision and mission statement. In 2012, Maine law was passed that students would receive diplomas if they demonstrated proficiency in 8 areas: English, math, science and technology, social studies, health and PE, visual performing arts, world languages, and career development, beginning with the class of 2021, to demonstrate proficiency in 4 core areas: math, science, English, and social studies. Each year that follows, an additional content area of the student's choice would need to be demonstrated. We as a staff, driven by our leadership team, have developed a 5-year school improvement plan that would lead us to meeting this requirement. The 2016-17 school year marks the first year in this process. So at this time, I'd like to welcome Allison Warman and Jeanette Jacobs, who will lead your presentation.
Thank you everyone for coming. Welcome to the Proficiency-Based Education Night. That's what PBE stands for, and so from here on out, we're going to be explaining what Proficiency-Based Education is, but we'll be referring to it as PBE. Just some other language that we wanted to talk about were some synonyms for Proficiency-Based Education, or PBE. You might hear people refer to Competency-Based Education. That's essentially synonymous. And that's customized learning, which is a little bit different.
We sort of picked an acronym here to share with you 4 sort of key components that will affect your child, your children, the children in our school. And the acronym is CAVE, and the C stands for clarity. And what's really important in a proficiency-based school, and a proficiency-based system, is that your child knows what they're working on, where they're headed, what they need to work on to be proficient, what kind of evidence do they need to show. And all of that is transparent to them. It's also transparent to their parents and to the entire community. So one thing that we are working on here at Rangeley as part of our school improvement plan is getting our, we're going to call it scope and sequence, getting sort of our standards, our learning targets available to the kids and to the parents and to the community. So there's transparency, there's no questions about what's going on here, what's being taught, and what students leave Rangeley with as they head out into the world. You'll be able to know exactly what they're headed out into the world with. The second piece is accelerated pace. So in a proficiency-based system, students have the opportunity to move either at an accelerated level further ahead than what the class pace might be. They also have the option to take standards and take their learning to a deeper level, to a higher level of learning. This is voice and choice. We currently are in the process of creating a shared vision with our students. We have one that Charlie shared with you earlier for our district. We felt it was important that the students create their own. And right now our students K through 12 are answering the question, why do we come to school, developing that shared vision. It's one example of giving students voice and choice and ownership in their education. And voice and choice kind of leads us into the E, engagement. When students are given voice and choice, as well as clarity, as well as the option to accelerate their learning, to take things to a different level of understanding, it increases their engagement, their motivation. There's no secrets. They kind of know what they're working on, know where they're headed. They can choose how they want to be assessed. They can choose topics they might want to study, the order they might want to learn things in.
So with this entire presentation, our goal is really to show you how is this going to impact your child. And it's called the Daily 5 and the Cafe model. This is something that's currently being done at our elementary level, K-5. And it's something, actually, it's really exciting. Our high school is toying with the cafe model as well. There are parts of the high school. The elementary, and especially our elementary school, has been doing proficiency-based education for a very long time, or at least a number of significant components of proficiency-based education. So it really gives our high school teachers and our middle school teachers an opportunity to examine what they're doing at the elementary level and then sort of modify it for the high school level. So it's given us a chance to really work more collaboratively as an entire team. Moving from a teacher-centered classroom to a more innovative classroom where it's really driven by the students. And so that's the piece where we're talking about voice and choice and where that comes out.
And in a proficiency-based system, students are reported on their academic progress, but they're also reported separately scores they receive on their reports do not meld the two. Academic standards are completely separate from habits of work. And Maine has released what they call the Maine's Guiding Principles. And we developed our habits of work, which are essentially 21st century learning skills, many of which the community recognized as being what they wanted our students to graduate with. They're definitely exemplified in these 5 guiding principles. They read clear and effective communicator, self-directed and lifelong learner, creative and practical problem solver, responsible and involved citizen, and integrative and informed thinker. And what our staff did is we got together in groups, and with representation from each sort of grade level, these groups came up with sort of benchmark standards for each grade span. So they looked at kindergarten, second graders. What should they be able to do by the end of second grade in reference to these guiding principles? And then again for the end of 5th grade, the end of 8th grade, the end of 10th grade, and then our graduates. So just like we have academic standards for math and reading and writing, we will soon have these habits of work expectations that will be reported on report cards.
And just to point out, we have already been using habits of work, the conversation with students about habits of work. So what we have up here, actually a middle school and a high school example of how we are grading students or scoring students on habits of work.
Habits of work will somehow be related to student eligibility. Eligibility no longer will be solely on academic scores, but will connect to the child's work habits, whether they're completing work on time and so forth.
Another component to clarity is providing students with clear learning targets. What we have up here are 3 examples that exist in the school today. We have an elementary example, a middle school example, and a high school example. And you can see that they're all different and they're all varied. But the whole point is really to make sure that students know what are they supposed to do, and where are they headed? Where are they in their progression? So where are they in the standards? And then what do they need to do to move on? Is that students are more motivated, they're more engaged in the process because they know the next step that they need to do, and they're excited to excel. Every kid wants to do well, and so this is something that's really empowering teachers, empowering students and teachers to help kids get to that next level.
But they're broken down into what we call student-friendly knowledge, either by the teacher or with the teacher, depending on the appropriateness of the grade level and the standard. But they're explained, and that whole process is very transparent to children. This slide right here is called a scoring guide, and the scoring guides that Rangeley is using to build a foundation for our scope and sequence of standards comes from the Maine cohort of customized learning, which is a group of districts that work together using Common Core, other standards that were available to create a cohesive sequence of standards from kindergarten through graduation. Sorry, go ahead, that's it. So for this scoring guide, the content area is math, and measurement topic refers to taking a component of math, sort of like one of the pieces of mathematics, whether it's geometry or measurement. This one refers to operations of addition and subtraction. The scope level means it's the second standard in the progression in addition and subtraction. So there is an expectation before students get to this one that they have to work on, and then there's others that come afterwards. The standard here that's always looked at when you're looking at a scoring guide is the proficiency level. And proficiency is always a 3 on the scoring guide. This right here in the center is the standard. It's the expectation for what the students need to either know or be able to do. So in this case, they need to understand that numbers to 10 can be decomposed, broken apart in more than one ways and recorded using drawings or equations. Over here, the taxonomy level refers to the level of thinking and learning that's required of the student. And in this case, the student needs to be able to work at a comprehension level, needs to be able to understand it and explain it in some way. On the far end is assessment items. And we spoke earlier about the voice and choice piece being that students can choose how they may be assessed, and they can have a variety of assessment options to show that they can be proficient. And the scoring guides that we work with have some suggestions, but it doesn't limit us as teachers as to how we have to assess or how students need to be assessed. The most important thing that we really want to stress with the community, this is a really big shift from traditional education and scoring reporting, is this proficiency level, the 1, 2, 3, 4. What's often misconstrued is that the 1, 2, 3, 4 correlates to an A, B, C, D. And that's absolutely not the case. They're two totally different systems that do not talk to each other. But in every situation, the 3 is the desired outcome. This is what students need to be able to know and do. The 4 kind of relates to the egg accelerated pace, where if a child wants to take something to a higher level of thinking and learning, they have the opportunity to do so. And 2 is the foundational piece. It's what does the student need to be able to know and do before they can get to the 3.
No longer are we asking kids to complete tasks to be proficient. It's no longer about the assignment, it's about what a kid can actually do.
So can they then test out of it?
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely, yes. Yeah, that's one of the big shifts is that pre-assessment, so seeing where our students are at, or something that teachers are already working on, but that will become a huge part of this process. Teachers will work on differentiating for students, which means that they will have assignments, scaffolds, level. We'll be working on this information. Students at a proficient level or near proficient level will be working here, and then students that might be ready to go to a deeper level will be working on a 4. And you can see too that a 4 isn't filled in because a lot of times student choice plays into that significance.
So between one classroom, say the science classroom and the world history or whatever, a 4 is a 4, a 3 is a 3. So it's not subjective because, if it's like an opinion, and then one opinion could be completely different than another opinion.
It should be less subjective. Our goal is to make it more objective, and that's where the clarity piece comes in. It should be very clear for students and parents exactly what my child needs to be able to do or to know to meet proficiency on this standard. This process really teaches kids to embrace what we think of as failures, but they're really not. It's information. It's a data point that teaches us where we need to go next or what we need to do to get there. This actually is something that's in every single high school classroom. This is a rubric that we currently use in high school. What I have my students do and work collaboratively is one of those right there. So what I have my students do often, almost daily, as an exit ticket, that just means you have to give me this thing before you leave my classroom, is they score themselves on each area, each of these 4 different categories, and then they have to provide just briefly evidence of what happened in class that day to show me how they exemplified these 4 characteristics.
So a 1 is like you're emerging in the standard, you're learning the new skill, you need a little bit of help, especially needing help in order to move up to the 2. So the 2 is you can maybe do the 3 with help, but it's also that you can do the basic parts. You might know the vocabulary terms or some of the really simple components of the standard. The standard is proficiency. That's level 3 always. And that is the student can do it by themselves at the level of thinking and learning that's identified on one of the assessment options that's been connected to the standard. And then the 4 is going beyond by showing the standard in a new way, a different level of thinking and learning.
So this is actually like the front cover of what's going to be available in classrooms, and then each one of these represent a standard. This is called a progression or a scope and sequence. The sequence is here. It's the standards, the order of the standards, and then the scope is the depth. So that's how deep the level is, or how deep the knowledge or understanding is going for the students. And you can see that, some of them have 7. You'll see some in other content areas that might have 14 standards for one measurement topic. So it really varies based on what it is that we're asking students to learn. Is that a 1 doesn't necessarily start in kindergarten or in 1st grade. This doesn't correlate with grades at all. Middle school might start with a 1. And actually, we have a key up here. Anything that you see in yellow, students need to meet those standards by the end of their second grade year. These are called benchmark standards. Anything in green, students need to meet by the end of their 5th grade year. Blue is by the end of their 8th grade year. Purple is by the end of their 10th grade year. And then the pink is by the end of their 12th grade year. Okay? So those are benchmark standards. So some students might be moving faster, but however, there might be students that are working towards that too, and they can't get there. The answer is actually that we are going to work with students in the same way that we already do. We have a wonderful process that is now officially K-12, and it's called RTI, which means Response to Intervention. It's essentially a 3-tiered system where if a student is struggling, the team of teachers, so the middle school, or the high school, or the elementary will get together. They'll talk about why students are struggling. They'll create a plan for that student. At the high school level, when we talk about RTI, we actually talk about all levels of students. It goes into our accelerated students too. So we talk about personalizing education for students. That's in our vision. That's what we're talking about. We want to do that for all kids. We want to give attention to all of our students. The best. We want all of our students to excel to the highest level. You're not individually teaching to like 12 topics or content areas. You're taking a standard, so like a topic, kind of, and you're teaching different levels of it.
I teach 1st and 2nd grade. So as a teacher, I'm not just looking at what's in yellow and saying that's all I have to teach and my kids have got that, they're good. I'm looking beyond that, and my kids, when they leave me, they may have just met the benchmarks and that's where they're at. They may not have, and they're receiving the interventions that Jeanette talks about, but many kids are already going to be working well into the 5th grade end of year benchmarks. So that leads to what Seth said, where hopefully there is a little bit of wiggle room at the end for students. But because of our RTI system, where we're closely monitoring kids and having these benchmarks in place, will allow us to provide those interventions before time has run out. That's happening right now, and even at the elementary level, we have students that are moving either into the next grade's math course or getting remedial work and moving backwards.
One thing that we are working on is flexible grouping. So what Allie talked about is students moving into the next grade level. We currently, or moving on to the next standard rather. So like Allie said before, as a teacher, just because I'm a high school teacher doesn't mean that I shouldn't know the lower standards. I have to meet my students wherever they're at. So when they're coming in, and if they're at a 5th grade reading level, that's where I'm meeting my student. So we have to be familiar with all of them, really, that it's shared ownership. We asked, we actually did an activity where we gave all of our staff name tags the first day, and they thought we were crazy because we asked them to put their name and what they taught. We actually had these little stickers that we put over what they taught, because everybody put their content areas, and we put, I teach children. It's not your student or my student, they're our students. We have a ton of opportunities for our high school kids. I mean, for such a small school, I have never seen so many opportunities for kids to take independent classes, take college level classes, online, at universities.
That's my concern is, does mediocrity become norm? When you take away the competitive piece without the grade part, what's gonna motivate some people? I can't speak to everyone, I'm just a highly competitive person, and when I was in school, those that I was in academic, we were very competitive about grades, sports, music, everything, and that's not really how life works. I mean, you have to compete for jobs, you have to...
The thing to remember is that right now, kids don't have to get A's. Right now, in our current system, there are kids, you don't have to get an A. So when you say, is the 3 gonna be just what kids are working for? Well, right now, kids technically have to get a D. We're saying we want way more than a D. We're pushing kids. Research shows that they have to have above a 70 to play sports. It's because they feel personal responsibility for it. And now you're talking a whole different ballgame. You're talking about kids who are gonna exceed any expectation that a parent or a teacher could have put on.
Proficiency is sort of the low bar. The more I work with the standards, the more I am convinced that proficiency is pretty darn rigorous. It's not just that you're gonna be able to recall or do a match of vocabulary definition, that you're gonna know the terms, be able to apply it, be able to relate to it in a real life situation, be able to explain something. Those standards without proficiency are actually pretty darn rigorous.
The foundation of the work is built off of what's called the cohort for customized learning. You can look them up online. They're a group of Maine districts that got together and they sent representatives from each one of those districts and they created the standards. The standards were based off of national standards, the national science standards, the Common Core standards for reading, for writing, and for math.
That have since been adopted by Maine as Maine's new learning.
Right.
What about kids with special needs who can spend 2.5 hours on world history and still struggle?
Students with an IEP will have an IEP, which their goals will be determined by the standards that they are working on. So their IEPs will be sort of their own it's an individual plan, obviously, but it will have the standards right in it that the kid is working on.
And they can still have accommodations the same as they might have prior to that.
If you have a kid who, let's say the kid is in 8th grade, but they're really working at a 5th grade math level due to a disability, their standards are at the 5th grade level. So they'll continue to work on that, and then when they get to the point of graduation, depending on where they are, they may graduate with a different type of diploma based off of their IEP. The law allows that. The law allows that you can graduate with a RLRS proficiency-based diploma, straight up, you met all these standards, or a sort of a general diploma of attendance or whatever because of an IEP.
And
Meet the kid.
there are kids. I mean, one of the content areas that we have currently that we're actually building from scratch is life skills. We have students who need foundational life skills. They're not necessarily working, they're here, you know, they're not gonna be at this level. And so they have a different set of standards that they're gonna be working with because, again, that's their need.
Like currently at the elementary level, if you receive a report card, it might say like, my child can count to 20, my child knows their ABCs, but once you get to the middle school, high school level, your child brings home a report card and it says they got an A or a B minus. And what does that tell you? They're doing a good job, they're not doing such a good job. Does it tell you what they're learning academically, how their work habits in class? One of the biggest differences in the proficiency-based system is the transparency to you as a parent in what your child actually can knows and what they can do. This is a sample of what a report may look like when we send them out to you this year. We are adopting a new software system, which is really exciting, that is a standards-based reporting system that will share with you both you can log in and then your reports that you mailed home exactly where your child is at in the learning continuum. So this is a sample of one of those reports. As you can see, there's history, writing arguments, so there's your academic content areas. And underneath history here, you have a standard, and then you have individual assessments that are given to show where the child is at. So on these assessments, this first child's received, you can see over here, there's a score of a 2 and a 3 and a 2 and a 3. So those assessments are assessing those different levels of thinking and learning that we showed you earlier. And then overall, the child has a score for the standard. Right now they're at a 2.9. So you would be able to see as a parent that they're pretty close to getting to proficiency. They might only need a couple more pieces of evidence. And on a proficiency-based report, the score relates sort of to the most recent assessments that your child has been given. Jen, I came up with a really neat analogy. Like if you're a coach, you're not going to coach your athletes on how they were performing at the beginning of the season. You're going to coach them from where they're at now. And a standards-based report reflects that. It reflects where your child is at now. So weight isn't given to the assessment that was way back 3 months ago when they were way down here, foundational level knowledge, but will reflect where they're at currently. And then down at the bottom, separately reported, is the habits of work. So here are 2 habits of work standards, different pieces of evidence for that standard, and then the child's score for those habits of work.
One thing to note as well, you're gonna see, no longer will you see zeros, because we're not averaging. There are no numbers to average. So if a student doesn't complete an assignment, you're gonna see an M, that means missing. And that may also be reflected in your student's habit of work. So if you have a student with a series of items that say M, then you wanna go down to their habits of work and check out what's going on. So this report actually is gonna give parents so much more information to be able to have a conversation with your child about what is going on here.
This seems like a lot of work for the teachers. All of these individual things you have to put in. How are we as a school district rewarding teachers for putting in this much effort and then shafting?
Well, that's a wonderful question.
Well, and how are we gonna
Actually, kind of already doing this, but in different ways. Like, so at the middle school, high school level right now, you have a traditional grade book where you've entered in assignments, homework assignment for this night, homework assignment for that night, in this lab, in this project, this paper. So you've already been doing that work. In this case, you're just entering in assessments, proof of where a child is at in their progress. So this is just housing it in one place where you as a parent, no matter where your child is at, kindergarten, 12th grade, can log in and see where they are. Same system.
So this part isn't more work, but to be able to get to the point, the curriculum piece is a huge amount of work, right? An A in one school might be a B in another school. It's completely subjective. One thing that's beneficial about this is that it's this in addition to another item, which is called the school profile. Your transcript will go, they'll know all the standards, everything that your child can actually do. Heidi, one of the things that she'll be working on that will be, our goal is to have it available for next year. Every transcript, when it goes to a college, gets a school profile. And that basically explains everything on the transcript. How we grade, right, Heidi, how we grade, how we come up with everything.
The 3 is proficient. So students that are ready to be accelerated have 2 options. And the individual plan will be created based on that child's needs. They have the option to move on to the next standard, like what would traditionally be maybe the next grade level. They also have the option to take the standard to a higher level of thinking and learning. And that is considered a 4 on the proficiency scale. So there is an option to receive scores that are higher than the grade as a form of distinction.
Voice and choice, I'm a little confused. So, in math, is a good example. What's the voice and choice in math? You're on geometry, your lesson plan is 10 questions. I guess an example might help me on where are you the kids are deciding?
It's not just that kids get to decide to do
No,
whatever,
right.
but it's giving kids voice in what they're doing, and it's giving them options along the way, somewhere along the way. So Seth's students came into him the other day, he was sharing a story with me, and he said that his students actually asked him to switch the type of homework that he was giving them and to give it in a different format. And he was like, yeah, why not? Of course I'll do that. And they were like, really? Great. That's a small example of student voice and choice. Assessments might vary. I might give a student, and I do this currently, I might give one student a test because they test well or because they, it fits their learning style or whatever, and I might have another student who does a project. Now, as long as they're the same rigor, as long as this piece, what we call the taxonomy level, is the same, as long as it's the same idea of like how hard it is, then that's fine. We're meeting kids where they're supposed to be at. A student-led conference is essentially in lieu of what you now know as a parent-teacher conference. A parent-teacher conference, if you think about it, you come in, it can be kind of daunting. You've got like your teachers around the table, you come in, sit down at the desk, and everybody talks about all the wonderful things that are going on in class. This really puts the student at the forefront of that process, where your student has chosen work and they're sharing what it is that they're learning about with you. And they're sharing not only their strengths, but they're also sharing their areas of challenge with you. And you, the teacher, and your child are then talking about, well, what are your next steps? Where do you need to go from here?